I'm Med.
And I'm Charlie.
Please, Charlie, enlighten me. Why are we here today?
I just finished Loud by Drew Afualo.
I remember you telling me about this book. You really liked it.
I did really like this book. I like the fact that above the barcode we just have the word feminism.
That's great.
In case you weren't sure about what the book was about, there's a little tagline. Is that the category
that it falls
into? It's the category, yeah. I've been a fan of Drew for some time now. Mm-hmm. She kind of blew up during COVID. Always been a long-time fan of hers. And then she came out with this book, I think it was last summer, and it just kind of blew up. Like, everyone's been talking about it. I've seen lots of people like reviewing it on TikTok. It's gone pretty viral. I feel like the easiest way to describe it would be like kind of like a handbook manual, but also a bit of like a memoir, because it's about Drew's life, but it's kind of like her going through certain lessons that she's learned and how that's impacted her and how it's like helped shape her and push her forward in different ways.
How old is she to have...
She's not 30 yet. She's got to be like...
She's got a memoir already.
Yeah, she's like late 20s. I want to say like 28 or 29.
Interesting.
Her main thing that she blew up for was basically just like ripping men to shreds online.
I think I see one of her videos. I think that's how I know her, is from the red flag video that she posted.
Yeah, that was the one that went super, super viral.
That went everywhere. And I was just like... Well, she was reading the list and I'm like, I wonder if I have any of these red flags.
Of what like the most really obvious red flags are for men.
I reckon one of the red flags that she had, I've definitely got.
What?
I get too passionate about sports.
Was that one of them?
Yeah, and then she was like saying something like, chill out, you're not on the team.
I mean, so fair.
I mean, fair enough, but...
So fair, you're not on the team.
You've got to be passionate about something that you support.
I think probably what she was more insinuating was like, men are often allowed to be extremely passionate about sports, but when women show that same passion...
About?
Let's say Taylor Swift... then it's like, no, but seriously.
Wait,
like you know
not getting tickets for Taylor Swift and actually screwing.
This is what I mean. I remember there was a video from a while back when the Eras Tour was... I think it was in the US, one of the shows, and there was a girl who couldn't get in, or maybe her tickets were fake. I can't remember the reason why she wasn't inside, but she was with her two friends. And one of the surprise songs that Taylor did was like her song. And there's a video of her like scream crying. She like falls to the floor and she's like an absolute mess. Yeah, the girl that like she falls into her friend's lap.
Like,
they're like, it's okay. And like you see something like that, and understandably, everyone in the comments is ripping her to pieces, being like, that's so embarrassing that you care that much. But then you look at sports fans, specifically male sports fans, who will beat people to shreds from the opposite team, get involved in like fights.
That's not me, by the way. When I say passionate, I'm just more passionate.
Of course. But like there'll be people that will hurl abuse at others, like all this stuff. And you're like, okay, but that's allowed because it's all in the nature of the game.
No,
And it's a bit like, okay, well, why can't we?
I understand that.
I
understand that. I wish we had the list so we can kind of go through. I think I could get the list though.
You could get the list up.
We can go through it.
That could be quite fun, actually.
To see what else there is that I'm aligned with.
If you ever see in a man's Hinge bio, greatest movie of all time, or like, fight me on this, and it'll be like, Wolf of Wall Street is the greatest movie of all time, immediately report them to the app, because they're probably a psycho.
I think it's a good film. I don't think it's great. I've watched it once and it's on the same level with Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, where it's a good film.
I never saw that one.
It's a good film, but it's not really amazing. But
the whole point is that people love it because it's this whole idea of this guy that creates this financial empire.
But what's funny is that story's been around for ever.
Yeah,
and he released a book about it, but it wasn't until Margot Robbie, Leo turned up, where people were like, actually, it's kind of sexy and cool, but it's a movie. Anything having to do with Joe Rogan.
Agreed, yeah, that's a massive red flag.
Red flag?
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, I like UFC, and he used to fair enough. Calls women females.
Yeah, that's a massive red flag.
Could you elaborate why it's a red flag?
So female and male also tend to be used in biological contexts. They're associated with anatomy and the ability to bear children, and are often also used when describing animals. So being called females feels like we're reduced to a function rather than being considered as whole human beings.
Fair.
Like you wouldn't be like a woman gorilla. You'd be like a female gorilla. Do you know what I mean?
That's true.
So
obsessed with Tom Brady.
I'd more call that maybe like a pink flag. Like it could develop into a red flag, but I don't know if that would immediately put me off.
Fair. Charlie.
One that I actually want to add to this list really quickly, and I know that a lot of people are going to disagree with me, but this is just from personal experience. Every man that I've ever met who is obsessed with Anthony Bourdain, the chef, is crazy.
What, from Queer Eye?
No, babe.
Because if you're calling him a chef, he is not a chef.
No, not Anthony from Queer Eye, but I love the fact that that's who you think I'm talking about. That's a green flag from you. This is Anthony Bourdain. He was a really, really famous chef. Have you ever seen that TikTok sound where it's like, if you're on the street, like go into a restaurant and have the white sauce, or like have a glass of wine on a cobbled street. Like he's very dramatic. He's very dramatic.
Never heard of him.
He's also dead, R.I.P. But he was just this really famous chef. He did loads of documentaries about food. But basically, there was a theme running, especially through men in London. I'm sure a lot of women who have been on the dating scene and have dated men in London can verify this for me. A lot of men on Hinge are obsessed with Anthony Bourdain.
Interesting.
And all of the ones that I've met are not
Psycho.
well.
Okay.
So that's one that I'm adding on there.
We can add that to the list. Saturdays are for the boys. That's a weird one.
That like makes like the fire. Not because the thing is, 100% you should have designated time for your friends. You should like have a healthy balance. But it makes me think of, if anyone's watching All Stars right now, Love Island, when Luca, who was on a few seasons ago, he came on the show and Maya Jama was talking to him like, what do you want out of a woman? And one of the first things he said was like, oh, I want someone who can like hang with the bros. Like I need someone who like is okay with the fact that where I go, my boys go. Ew, that's so embarrassing for you. You're a grown ass man. That's so embarrassing for you. If I'm spending time with my partner, like I don't want my friends there. I want to have quality time with my partner and quality time with my friends. Obviously, I want everyone to be friends and get along and mix.
Would you go and watch football with him on the Saturday?
What, with the boys?
Oh, just you and him.
Absolutely not.
Why?
It's only if he would then come to things with me.
No, of course. Yeah,
but you didn't preface that.
Well, would you go and watch football with him on a Saturday? And obviously
if it really meant something to him, then I would think about it, yes.
You'd think about it. How about if all the wags are going as well?
I don't like that term.
Is football term football wife?
Yeah, no, I know what it means.
Wags.
Let's not get into this
Let's
right now.
not get into it.
I just
Fine.
don't like it. No, yes, I would go. If it meant a lot to him and he wanted me there, then yes, I would go.
Okay, fine. Let's move on from that flag.
Let's move on from this whole conversation. Because we're gonna fall out again.
Start any debate about women's equality with... No, like, don't get me wrong. Like, I'm all for females working.
Oh, yeah.
There's loads here, but I think the main one was the Wolf of Wall Street one. Let's elaborate a little bit more.
Do you not want to go on to the other ones?
No, because her face is in the way and I can't really read it.
Oh, that's fine.
But watch the video and there's plenty more.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. If you're not familiar with Drew's content, she blew up really for either like reacting to videos of men being misogynistic and sexist online and tearing them a new one, or like people would comment hate on her videos and she would respond to those comments. I like to think that she is the kind of blueprint of fighting fire with fire. It's a method that I really respect and appreciate. Sorry, my GP has sent me a message. Hope I'm okay.
Why are you texting your GP?
No, it's from the NHS app.
Oh. I was like, that's really weird. Your GP.
My GP are like this.
I was going to say, what?
I think something that she talks a lot about in the book that we will get onto, she has a whole chapter called It's Okay to Be Mean. Mm-hmm. That was, I think, like a very transformative chapter for me because her whole brand is kind of like, look, if you're going to speak to me in a certain way or speak about women in a certain way, I'm going to respond to you in that same way and in that same attitude. And if you can't take it, then maybe you shouldn't be like calling out women on the internet.
Which I agree. If you can't take it, then don't give it.
Basically.
Simple as that. And like if you're jumping on someone's page and giving them abuse or just saying something that is mean, then expect to have it back. And
I also saw a really interesting video from her from a few years back when she first kind of started on the platform. She was doing a podcast interview and she was basically saying something along the lines of like, in order to engage with your oppressor, you need to use a language that is relatable to them. And so she was kind of saying how like throughout history, men have resorted to violence or violent speech in order to undermine and oppress women. So I'm going to do the exact same thing back to them. Why would I try and cater to them or combat their misogyny with kindness when they've never given me the same treatment?
Fair.
And it was really interesting because I don't think I've really ever seen people speak about it like that or be so honest to be like, yeah, no, there's a lot of people out there who are probably going to be like, she's a bitch, she's creating more chaos or she's creating more anger. But in reality, all she's doing is just being like, actually, no.
Matching their energy.
If you're going to, you can't speak to me like that. And I'm going to speak to you back with the kind of like same level that you're giving me, which I personally respect.
So going through the book, did you learn a lot of things then?
I did learn a lot. This is one of those books that basically I want all of the women in my life to read. I think as well with this one, which I will have a quick shout out to Drew for, I really liked the fact that basically throughout the entire book, she doesn't just refer to women, she says like women and femmes.
Women and femmes.
Do you know what that means?
No, please elaborate.
No, it's okay. Basically, it's, so like, you know how people will be like femme presenting?
No.
So often in the queer community, obviously there's a lot of like different gender identities, non-binary. For example, it would be quite like exclusionary of me to speak about women's issues or women's plights without speaking about how that impacts femmes.
Okay.
So anyone who's femme presenting is often impacted by the patriarchy and misogyny.
Okay.
So it's not just cisgendered women, basically.
Okay.
So that's what Drew does throughout the entire book, is she's like women and femmes.
Okay.
She has some really, really cool chapters. One of my favourite ones is definitely one of her chapters called I'd Rather Die Alone, which is basically all about how she came to this mindset of, I would so much rather die alone than submit myself to being with a mediocre man or someone who doesn't match my worth, match my energy, like provide to me what I deserve and vice versa.
Not settling for.
Basically, yeah. But it's kind of a bit more like revolutionary than that, because, do you know what? Why don't I read you a little excerpt?
Yeah, please.
Because this is basically book club, so let me read this.
Do you want my opinion?
I would love your opinion. For every woman who voluntarily remains single, there is judgment surrounding that choice to stand alone in life and be happy about it. It's never treated as an autonomous decision, nor do people believe that we can be not only happy alone, but ecstatic and thriving. We're never allowed to decide of our own free will that being alone is better for us than being with someone who isn't enough. No one wants to believe that narrative, only the one in which we're forced to make that choice because a man hurt us so deeply, or no one would have us, or we aren't marriage material. Men have to believe that a woman can only want to live alone if she has no other option. Any possibility of us having the agency to decide whether or not we want to be truly and happily alone scares them. She's not even just saying that like a woman doesn't want to settle. If a woman decides actually what's best for me and what is the most fruitful thing in my life is that I want to be alone, that's a big no-no in society's perspective. Like, you got to think about, like, when you look at like men in their 40s and 50s, more often than not, if they're bachelors, obviously there'll be certain people that will be like, you need to settle down, you need a wife, you need a partner, yada, yada, yada. But they're not penalised for that, or they're not judged in respect of, you haven't found the one. If anything, it's a case of you're choosing this lifestyle. But if it's a woman, it's a case of, oh, no one chose you.
She's stressed.
She's going to die alone.
She's
How
going
depressing.
to do your head in.
How depressing. Like,
clearly there's a reason she's single.
Exactly, 100%. That's a
she
narrative I
definitely
also...
can't cook. Sorry, I was getting...
It's so funny because I remember saying like, your opinion will be asked for. Like in like Love Island also, was one of the things, I think it was, can't remember who it was that was talking about, but basically she had been single for quite some time. I really, really, and this is not coming from a defensive perspective before anyone says anything, I really don't like this narrative that if you've been single for X amount of time, it means that there must be something wrong, or like what's going on with you. Like, it can't ever again be a case of like you've chosen that.
Why can't you just be single?
Because it just, society values relationships above all else.
Why does it matter? It's not like you're a car that has to be MOT'd. Do you know what I mean? After a certain amount of years. Yeah, I know, that's really weird. But it was just, but like,
no,
if a car's not been MOT'd for like 5 years, you're like, okay,
you're not broken.
Yeah,
I know what you mean. I get the reference.
Yeah, back to the book.
Back to the book.
You didn't ask for my opinion, but I forgot.
Oh, I'm so sorry. What was your opinion on that?
I completely forgot what you had said, so it's too late. This is why I try and jump in early.
Okay, do you know what? What we'll do next time is I'll just stop talking after the next excerpt. Right, this is a good one. This is from It's Okay to Be Mean. When I make videos online defending fat people who were attacked unprovoked by awful men, of course I comment on their physical appearance. I give them a mere taste of their own judgment, often comparing them to cartoon characters and implying that they're ugly, because to me they are. And whenever I do, these men emotionally crumble. They started it. You would think that they'd laugh along with me, right? Wrong. Men's rights activist types especially love to get up in arms about this and accuse me of body shaming. But, babe, you can't call what I'm doing body shaming and what you did jokes.
There's a saying for this. No, it takes two to tango, but something towards the line of like, if you give it... Anyway, but That's a fair statement. Like, if my kid's getting bullied for a specific reason or for the way they look, I'd be like, well, just give it back to them.
Yeah, it's kind of a tricky one because I think that some people obviously really struggle with confrontation and struggle with being able to do that. I don't really, I don't think. I don't think you do either.
I mean, I'll call someone out if I get called out.
Yeah. But I do think that it's something that like can be quite daunting. I think also it depends on who you're doing it with.
Yeah.
There was another thing that basically she said at the beginning of this chapter that I thought was really true, which is this whole concept of like, as women in particular, we're from quite a young age, we definitely are so terrified of like the bitch archetype. Mm-hmm. So the idea of
like mean girl kind of
like being called a bitch basically because you stood up for yourself or because someone might have been mean to you and in return you were mean back. But if it was a boy being mean to me, then they kind of can get away with it and they can be like, okay, well, that's just like the classic boys being boys, or the whole idea of like when you're a kid, if a boy is mean to you, it means that they like you and all of that bollocks. But when a girl is mean or a girl is bitchy, it's like, oh, like she's so horrid. Why can't she be like more chill? That's something that I feel like definitely I've only really dealt with over the past few years and like not cared about being labelled as a bitch. Someone labelled me as a bitch, I'd be like, sick, I've like accomplished something.
As you like to say, slay. These keyboard warriors just love to like vibe and like rip people and have an opinion that's so strongly like, I don't know, people hate, but they don't own themselves.
No.
Do you know what I mean? I like the thought of like matching someone's energy if they're giving it to you, and like you shouldn't have to, especially if it's on the internet.
Unless it's like me and you, in which case like you have to back down.
So you think. What has been something that really stood out for you in the book?
My main takeaway from the book has just been about embracing every part of me. I guess her whole mantra is just to live unbridled from like society's expectations and specifically like the patriarchy's expectations. But like she's a very relatable woman and she's a very normal woman. She's got like an insane following, super engaged fan base. Like she has this incredible podcast, she's released this book, but like she feels like so normal. Like I can imagine like if she was here, we would all have like a really great convo and she'd be so down to earth and so chill.
Did you feel really empowered reading the book?
Very empowered. There were so many chapters as well where I was like, okay, this relates to that part of my life. Or I would think of like one of my like friends and be like, she would definitely love this part of the book.
That's a good way of like understanding the book as well. And I think a book really resonates with someone if it is empowering. I find that with comedians. If a comedian says something and it's very relatable, like, oh my God, I do that as well. It's always straight away so much better. But
big fan of the book, basically.
I'm glad you liked it.
Yeah.